Hello, welcome to the Turret of Pleasure. Here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione, near Souk, BC. I want to talk some more about reissues. As an advocate of CDs, I like them because I don't know, to me they always sound better. I have original LPs of stuff. I play the CD, it sounds better. They're harder to wreck, they're harder to warp. The covers stay in better shape. If you screw one up, you replace the box. I don't know. They work for me. And part of the great thing about CDs is that they're still a semi-viable format. In that, if you want to get a hold of something, even something kind of obscure, you can get a proper, good digital copy of it. And I'm going to talk about a couple of these labels. I recently fell down a rabbit hole. I was watching Eraserhead. It was on Netflix. Hey, I hadn't seen Eraserhead in years. And I remember that the song in it that everybody knows, "In Heaven Everything is Fine." And I remembered that. I thought, yeah, who was the guy that did that again? I couldn't remember his name. I looked it up, and a guy named Peter Ivers. And I thought, that's right. Who the heck was he again? And I couldn't really put my finger on who he was. And I kind of looked him up a little bit. And sure enough, he had made some records as a rock musician. He had started out in a sort of a blues band in New York City. And he was a harmonica player. And apparently, somebody, John Lee Hooker, said he was the best harp player in the world, which is interesting if true. At any rate, he made a really weird record for Columbia in about '69 with I can't remember her name, Astapulli. I might pronounce this completely wrong. The lady that sang on Ornette Coleman's science fiction record, East Indian lady, who has a great voice. And he did this really weird record on Columbia that nobody bought. And as a result, his second record, they just said no. I think they put a single out. Hard stuff to find. I haven't heard a lot of it. And then he moved to LA. And in about 1973, I guess, he fell in with the likes of Van Dyke Parks, who was interesting. And Van Dyke introduced him to Larry Waronker. And the next thing you know, he had a deal, 2-album deal with Warner Brothers. And he put up the first, this CD is now available. This is 3 of his records on 2 CDs. They claim it's $11.99 US. Mine was about $25 all in. I had to buy it online. And this is a really interesting record because it's very tightly arranged pop music. But the first thing is you got to get past his voice. He has a very, very high-pitched voice. It's almost like a squeaky voice. It's a good voice, but it takes some getting used to. He joins my group of artists whose voice it took me a while to get used to, and it's a good group. Tom York's in it. Feargal Sharkey. Who else? Anyway, but there's some great names on this record. It was produced by him and Buell Nedlinger, who's a bassist who played with Cecil Taylor, played with Steve Lacy. He's on one of the Steve Lacy boxes I reviewed recently. Real journeyman, and he knew Van Dyke Park. He played on Discover America. Plays electric bass and string bass, versatile. And this was apparently a band. They call it the Peter Ivers Band on the cover, anyway. And the band was Buell Nedlinger on bass. He also got to co-produce the record, I guess, because Warner's thought he was capable. What's her name again? Alice de Burr. Alice de Burr, the drummer from Fanny, plays drums on this, and quite well indeed. And there's a couple of guys I don't recognize. Marty Crystal plays all the saxes on it, and Marty Crystal's another one of these guys, LA session guy, plays a lot of baritone, and he plays really well and mixes really well with Ivers' harmonica, which is surprisingly almost all great. And this is not a harmonica record. It's hard to describe what this record sounds like without playing it for you, which I'm not going to do because then I get hassles. But and the songs are all really different. And the other name on this, it's very interesting, is additional guitar Elliot Ingber. And if you're a beefheartologist such as myself, you'll know that Elliot Ingber was also known as the Winged Eel Fingerling. He also played on Freak Out, Zappa's first album. He was in the Mothers. Very interesting blues guitarist. Kind of crazy. But he's an interesting name. And the whole first record is very good. It sneaks up on you. You got to get past the voice. The lyrics are really cool. His lyrics are interesting. The songs have millions of chords. And like I say, for my $20, I got the album after this, which features some veterans. Like the first album, apparently they had a full-page, front-page ad on Billboard for the first record, and it did nothing. It was like a stone unable to roll. And so the second record, they figured, well, somebody, the powers that be, figured they better put an actual hit guy. So they put Mr. Gary Wright in charge of production. You remember him, Dreamweaver. And he was pretty hot. Of course, what this means is Waddy Watchell, Steve Porcaro, Willie Weeks, and of course Gary Wright. So this is a pretty hot band. Art Wood on drums, who is not a name I'm familiar with. Anyway, and an appearance by Carly Simon on a weird song called Peter, and some backup singers. There's backup singers on both albums, actually. And again, now this record sounds, not surprisingly, a fair bit like Dreamweaver, which is not a great thing. The songs are a bit more straight. I still like it. I don't love it. There's one song, maybe two songs I do really like. And then the second CD is what looks to be a sort of a compilation that I think Warner's put out after he died, because this poor guy was murdered. And this has 4 songs that you've already got on the first disc, and then a bunch of demos and other things. Some of them are quite good. My Dissonant Mother. There's a great little harmonica solo at the end, a song called I've Got a Sex Crush. He's a strange, strange artist. The more I listen to it, the more I like it. Now, this is on Wounded Bird Records, which is one of these new labels that seems to be dedicated to nothing but reissuing obscure major label product. And I go, great, this is wonderful. And there's a bunch of them. There's Collectibles, which seems to be Rhino's in-house label. And Collectibles are really cheap. They usually are adequate for notes. They usually put 2 records on one CD, sometimes not by the same artists. And that can be problematic. For instance, I have Sonny Chirac right here, and Sonny Chirac Black Woman, an original Vortex record, which is why I wanted it. And they put People Get Ready, the Freedom Sounds with Wayne Henderson on it as well, a record I've never heard of. I did not actually care to buy it. It's okay. But I figured for, I think it was $12, that just means I got it for free. So that's fine. Same with this one. I basically got a free CD with this. I think, like I say, all in it was about $20. Anyway, Peter Ivers. He's all over YouTube. Check him out. Anybody who likes pop music from the 70s. And I would call this intelligent pop, arty pop, maybe. Some of you are going to hate it, I guarantee. But I resisted the hatred. Right off the bat, I went, "Ooh, this is not for me." And then things started to catch my ear. Wounded Bird. I've also got Wounded Bird, Herbie Mann, which I talked about last time. This is also on Wounded Bird. Now, I gotta say, this is to Wounded Bird. If you're gonna do this, for the love of God, put some effort into it. So what they've done is they've given me the skimpiest of booklets. They've given me the 3 covers on the front, small. I can live with that. They have given me the most basic of notes. Who plays on it, who produced it, what the song names are, what track they are. Nothing about where it was done, who the engineers were, none of that stuff. And it's really, they cheaped out, it looks like. And then the back, there they give you the back cover. That's the good news. The bad news is, even with this, I can't fucking read it. So this is kind of like a fuck you to the consumer. Rather than give us a booklet with maybe 2 more pages in it, and each of these being its own page, where with my magnifying glass I could actually read the fucking things, you wouldn't even need this page. But what do I know? I'm just a stupid consumer. I'm so glad I bought it. I started pulling these out. This is the Herbie Mann one. And let's see. How do they do it? This sound, by the way, the sound of these is great. So they've done the important stuff is good. And this actually has the original notes. So this is somewhat better. I wonder if this is newer or older. At any rate, God bless them for existing, because there's a bunch of good stuff on Wounded Bird. I can't get it out because it's too hard to get at, but the Alice Coltrane Hare Krishna record is on Wounded Bird. I'll let a lot slide for the fact that they put that out. So that's cool. The other label I can't figure out if they got anything to do with Wounded Bird, but it's a label called Water. And if you look up Water Records on Google, it just sends you to all kinds of meteorological sites. But I've just discovered, I just found, of course, I mean, who doesn't want Generic Flipper? Generic Flipper on Water Records. Just discovered all the other ones are on Water as well. Yes, I'm going to buy them. Bjard Lancaster, It's Not Up to Us. An original Vortex. Really interesting jazz record. Sonny Sharrock. Bjard on saxes. And who the heck else is on this again? Anyway, this fact that you can buy this today is great. Sonny Sharrock, Jerome Hunter on bass or Fender bass. Eric Gravatt, that's right, on drums. Eric Gravatt from the second incarnation of Weather Report, who finally gave up and became a prison guard, I think. Yikes. Oh well. He's a great drummer. And of course, and this is a weird one, it's a mini LP sleeve, was the first Judy Sill record. And I found this in the thrift store for $1. And this would be a $20 reissue because it's pretty fancy. There were very high hopes for Judy Sill. I believe she was the first artist David Geffen signed to Asylum when he formed Asylum. If not the first, one of the first. And he had a lot, she was sort of like Laura Nyro, maybe. And she had, there was one single off of this called Jesus Was a Crossmaker that really is a great single. And Graham Nash produced it. It's got everything in the kitchen sink in it. Really good song. I remember it as a single from way back when. But it wasn't a big hit. And she ultimately kind of went from strength to strength. I think she made 2 more albums. And sadly, she died of an overdose maybe in the 80s. But if you like the Asylum singer-songwriter sound with a slightly more arty, you'll note the cross. There was much mysticism in her music. Anyway, it was worth the buck. And then the one that really turned me on to Water, of course, is Sonny and Linda Sharrock, Paradise. Now again, I'm going to complain about something. This isn't what the original cover looked like. The original cover was actually a color picture of Linda. And why they didn't just leave the cover the way it was, it's all purple. Everything's purple. There's kind of a detail. I don't even know what this real record actually looked like. Now, having said that, there's notes. Who knew? Somebody wrote something about it. And this record is really cool. If you know anything about Sonny Sharrock, you'll know that he was the guy in Herbie Mann's band. Whenever he started to solo on guitar, everybody leave the bar and go for a smoke. He was Herbie's sort of noise guy. And he's a really interesting character. Played with a lot of cool people. Played with Last Exit with Shannon Jackson, Bill Laswell, Brotzman, and had a really nice melodic sense, despite the fact he was pretty noisy. Now, this record is indeed fascinating because he had gone from strength to strength. The record we looked at before was his first solo record, came out on Vortex, one of the great 14, I think it was, Vortex records, every one of which is great. This was an attempt to make Sonny and Linda. Now, Linda sounded a lot like Yoko. Wordless voice improvisations, swooping vocalises. Interesting, very avant-garde. A lot of people fucking hated it. And this was somebody's attempt to turn them into a fusion band. And there's a couple of things that, first of all, it's produced by Ilan Mimiroglu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He of Finidar Records, the avant-garde 20th century classical label that Atlantic had as a custom label for Mimiroglu. I think he was a friend of the Erdoğans. The executive producer is indeed Nasuhi Erdoğan. Now, this record came out in, I think, 74. Why is there no date anywhere? There is no date. 74, 75. Something like that. November 75. Sank without a trace. Who knew? Now, there's nobody on this I've heard of. These all seem to be New York session guys. Buddy Williams, Sonny Bonilla, Kenny Armstrong, Sonny and Linda. Okay, mistake number one. The engineer. Who's the engineer on this, by the way? Why, would you believe it's Phil Ramone? Okay. Phil Ramone is engineering a Sonny Sharrock record and decides that rather than do Sonny's normal thing, which is to let him play through a guitar amplifier, they put him direct into the board. So it's the world's cleanest Sonny Sharrock sound. And when he really starts to freak out, it's just about unbearably clean. But it's also kind of cool. Linda is quite great on this. Really outdoes it, really. And the keyboardist on this is the greatest noodly Fusac keyboard player you've ever heard. There's a couple of clavinet solos on this that made me burst out laughing. It's a great, crazy, weird, fucked up, what were they thinking record. Why was Ilan Mimiroglu involved? Were they going to put this out on Finidar? And then change their mind? It came out on Atco, by the way. Which was kind of the redheaded stepchild of Atlantic by that point. Roxy Music, I think. Siren came out at about the same time as this record. Anyway, there you have it. These reissue labels are great. Bring it on. More to it. Collectibles, Water, Wounded Bird. I'll dig out some more stuff to look at later. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and whatever it is we ask you to do in the future. Oh, here's the Minister of Defense. He's come up to say hi. What do you think here, boyo? Anyways, we'll get back at you soon.